Grace Off the Stage is a podcast where we will be hearing remarkable stories of the faithfulness of God in the everyday lives of people just like you. We hope that you'll listen in, celebrate with us, and share the podcast with your family and friends. And our prayer is that as you hear these stories, they will remind you of the faithfulness of God in your life and continue to strengthen your trust in Him. We're so glad that you joined us for Season 1 of Grace Off the Stage.
At a party, I ended up taking a friend's life.
And I said, honey, somebody is in the house.
He was just whispering like, Caitlin, like, I love you. I care about you.
I realized right then I need to take all of that energy, everything that I gave to myself, and give it to God.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Etienne Doucette. I'm the student life pastor here, and I'm really excited for another episode of Grace Off the Stage. This is a unique opportunity where we get to join some of our church members and some of the people outside of our church, just in the family of God, as we talk about how they've experienced Jesus in the everyday things of lives, and how they're not just taking Jesus to church, they're taking him to where they work, play, as they cultivate and grow their family. Today, I have the amazing privilege and honor to be joined by my brother, Angel.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good, a little bit exhausted, but I'm good.
A little bit exhausted, just came out of work?
Yes, sir.
Which, by the way, you told me, I asked, what do you do? And you said it's kind of tricky. You're basically a doctor for vehicles.
Yeah, we the company that I work for, we specialize in car computers. So there's no much companies that actually do that. So you can say that probably in Florida, we're only 3 companies that actually does that.
Wow.
And we're in the middle of Central Florida because the other one's in Miami and Jacksonville.
Okay, so really you're only the only one around. So what would I need to call you for if I was having what problem? What would that be?
Well, let's say if you got a problem with your car keys, car computer. That's mainly our business is car computer. Instead of going to a dealership and spend thousands of dollars, then you go through us. That you're gonna probably get it for half the price.
Wow, yeah, that sounds way better. Because honestly, save us a little bit of money, which is always nice. So, Angel, you're not originally from here.
No.
Okay, you and your family moved here from where?
From Puerto Rico.
Okay, and what was that adventure like? What was that kind of like for you and your family?
Well, it's going to be funny because, for example, like my wife always tried to come towards the United States and try something different, but I was the one that didn't want to do it. And we were comfortable there, but it was in 2017 when the hurricane struck over there, the island. It got there, I think it was a category 4. We think it was a 5 because the Doppler radar blew out at I don't know how many miles per hour. And so we were without power for a couple months.
Wow.
And we didn't have water for a couple months. So one night we were sitting on our porch talking about what we should do. And there was no work. That was a little bit difficult. And I remember seeing my kids sleeping outside in air mattresses. And I told myself, we don't have to do this. And her aunt called me one day and told me, hey, what do you think if I send to pick up your wife and kids and I'll bring them here? I said, that's perfect because then I can concentrate on work and helping to put the island back to work. But my wife told me, and what if I find a job? You know, my wife is a graduated teacher with her licenses, and I said, that would be perfect. But I wasn't considering jumping from our island to here. And the conversation stored north, and we decided, let's try it out. And at first, the only ones that came were them. I took them to the airport and just watch them get on an airplane by themselves. And I have to stay back because I gotta work.
And that must have been kind of tough.
Oh, it was.
I imagine as a father, but I mean, you kind of want what's best for your kids, and so
yeah, I remember people telling me in the airport, "You're not going?" I said, "No, I can't. I gotta stay behind. I gotta work. I gotta help other people to try to put everything back together." So Gypsy came with the kids, and she found a work real fast here in the school board in Highlands County, and a month and a half later, I was able to move towards United States, and here we are, 4 years later.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so that really sounds like a disaster in the first place, and you're thinking about this hurricane and being without power for months and just the incredible, distress you and your family were through, and, just through the compassion of you as a father saying, I want to care for my people, but also care for my family. And
Correct.
Sending them off here kind of was its own challenge, I'm sure, but also you kind of experienced some pretty cool community here. So what did that transition look like for you and your family, and kind of what brought you here to Grace and what brought you here to Sebring?
That's funny, actually. I remember that after we moved, we started visiting a couple churches, and I didn't like them because the type of church that I came from is very, very similar to Grace Bible. So obviously I was looking something very similar, but I want something different because over there our main language is Spanish. But I wanted to try something in English. I wanted to try something different. And I remember one morning my wife told me, we need to find a church. So okay, well, let's find a church. So we start searching around and looking at Radius and saw that there were a couple churches in the same area. So, oh, there's a lot of churches around. But I told my wife something funny. I said, okay, we're going to go to the first church that we see, obviously, in our list. And I remember doing a list, and I said, but we're not going to go in until I see people coming out. Okay. I want to see how they dress. I want to see their... Yeah. So the first place that we went, we stood in the car for like 5 minutes because there were different hours of church. Yeah. And everybody started coming with ties and really, really, really good clothes. I said, that's not me. Yeah. So we started searching and Googling, and she told me, hey, there's another church that have a service at 11. I think it was 11:30. Yep. And we saw the website that you guys have on the internet, and we saw the people on the praising the Lord in jeans and everything. Says that's more like it. That's more like it. And yeah, we came to the church, normal. I loved everything. I came from a church that is, like I said, it's very similar, but something that touched me is the way that I was received just by entering the church. Yeah. That deacons were outside working on the parking, that everybody was giving me the good morning before I even entered. And I didn't know that the pastors were the one greeting me and receiving us that day. I didn't know it because it was our first time. I didn't know it. I noticed actually when everything finished that and that day was Dustin that was preaching, that he was actually outside with another pastors just telling us goodbye. So that's something that really touched me that day. Other thing that touched me is that this church is not emphasized in making money. A lot of churches where you want, the first thing they talk is money, money, money. But this one touched me in the sentence says there are a couple ways to give if you feel like giving. And that's something that I said, that's something that we have lost. That touch is being lost by different churches. And so I said, I need to try this church. That's awesome. And at the beginning, but obviously we start coming, and my wife loves it, and my kids love it a lot. So this became our church.
Yeah, speaking of wife and kids, your kids immediately got plugged in. I've had the privilege to know them for quite some time, and they are just incredible and literally just growing up right before my eyes. That being said, tell us a little bit. List off your wife's name, your family's, and your kids and their ages.
Yeah, my wife's name is Gypsy Silva. Yeah. A lot of people say, why doesn't she have your last name? I know that's something here in the United States, but over there in our island, our wife keep her last name, and she told me, do you want me to change the last name? I said, I don't really mind because it's nothing that we actually are used to. Right. So her name is Gypsy Silva. I'm Angel Diaz. So a lot of people ask her I want to clarify that, but it's nothing personal. Just that we decided to leave it like that.
Clarify, ladies, he is married. Just let him know.
Yes, sir. Here's the ring. I'm happily married. I've been with that lady for 23 years. Wow. We're being legally married for 18.
That's awesome.
When Gypsy got pregnant, I was only 21 years old. She was just turning 18, and we decided to do the right thing. We decided to go together and continue to work and continue to study. It was a little bit tough, but we managed, and we got 3 beautiful kids. Nayarilis, as a lot of people talk to her and call her Nico. Yeah. She likes to be called like that.
Yeah, I've called her Naya, Nyrelius, anything that I can remember
to say. Yeah, the names are difficult to spell because my wife had this friends, and Nyrelius came from her three best friends, and she just take a little bit of each name and make her name.
Wow.
So that was when Night Release was born. Then we have Gypsonelle.
Yes.
She was supposed to be 15 this year.
Yeah.
Naive is 17. She's turning 18 right now in October. And we have Abner.
Yeah.
We didn't. We always wanted 2 kids. We were not considering a third. Abner came, so I told my wife that's a blessing. We got the. I always wanted girls. It's gonna sound funny, but I always wanted girls, and even the boy came. So I said, this is a privilege to have 2 girls, 1 boy.
Yeah.
And we decided to let's no more kids.
No more kids, yeah. Abner, they're all a blessing. I've had, like I said, the opportunity to go to camp with many of them, get to know them, which kind of segues into a big part of why you're here. We, it feels like it was just yesterday, but somehow it's been 7 months that, you kind of mentioned if they caught on as you were talking that, Gypsy would have been. We do know that, she had passed away tragically. And that was one of the things that I remember as a youth pastor. I've experienced loss before of a student or even just a local high school student. It feels like one of my students because I've seen them and been around them. And Gypsy was one of the students that I remember originally when I got the news. I remember it was just devastating. And for a multitude of reasons. People like me and Gypsy are an acquired taste. We have a lot of energy and we're really funny and we love to joke and laugh and play and be the life of the party. And that's great and that's good. And sometimes people are like, you're too much. But one thing that I remember a lot about Gypsy was she never entered in a room without lighting it up and really caring for people. And she's probably the most funny, entertaining human being, all wrapped up in this tiny package. I mean, goodness, I felt like she was only 5 foot tall. She was just this little tiny thing. But she cared a lot about a lot of things. She introduced me to anime and tried to explain it to me, and I had no idea what half of this stuff is. I'm just a lost youth pastor trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I learned a lot of those at the actual funeral. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, which brings me to at her memorial service. Wow, we had an incredible opportunity as a youth pastor. It was one of my honors to get to be a part of that. One of the unique things that I want to give you the mic to kind of talk about was that devastating loss was tragic. It was unexpected. It was out of the blue. And not just that, but there was this amazing peace and this amazing joy, and this amazing sense of just the presence of God in her memorial services. People were celebrating a life where it just displayed Jesus.
Correct.
And so for you as a parent, if you want to share a little bit about kind of how that experience unfolded and how that all went, and then just kind of what was it like for you as a family to cling on to Jesus? Because I'm telling you, you guys weathered that storm beautifully in a way that really shook me to my core.
Thank you.
So,
I'm going to talk about this story because a lot of people don't know, and I don't feel uncomfortable talking how it happened. Every single Sunday, we as a family ride bicycles around the block. Probably 6-7 miles. We just take our bicycles and run around the block. And that Sunday, we decided to do the same single thing. Gypsy always liked to make races with me. Every single time. I said, Dad, let's race. So, let's race. Who dad doesn't want to race their kids?
Who wins the most, though?
Well, I did. But
That's right. That's right.
But that day, we just work we usually, we live in Sun Lakes, and we did our normal cruising, and she told me, Dad, let's go inside the preserve. That's something that we actually don't do on a normal basis. So I said, let's go. I run mountain bikes there every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays with a group of gentlemen, and so I know every single trail inside there. We've been riding there for almost 2 years. So I said, let's go. And we went as a group. I remember we were 5, and we took a little one that was with us, but she could not complete the trail, so we went back, took it to her uncle, and she said, let's go, let's race the part that we always race. And we raced, and we went to the finish line, and she suddenly told me, Dad, I can't breathe. And I said, oh, you need to catch your air because we're running fast and everything, and she just sit down and pass out. And my reaction was carry her. We throw everything behind. Abner make the phone call at 911, and he was with me the whole time until she passed away in my hands in front of the lake where I sit usually every single time after I finish, because there's a beautiful sunset there, and and exact same place where I sit down to watch that sunset every single time that I finish my ride is where I see her pass away. And obviously we took her to the hospital. The doctors went with her for 45 minutes. And they told me, we can continue, but it's going to be a little difficult. So I had the tough decision to tell them not to continue. And at the moment, I didn't understand. I wasn't angry because I've been filling my cup every single Sunday for something like that, and I wasn't aware of that's going to happen to me. I never would have thought that I would lose one of my kids. Yeah. And before that happened, Gypsy one day came to me like a week before, and she told me, Dad, with everything's going on with, ideologies and everything, I'm a little bit confused. And we spoke. Instead of me as a father telling her, this is bad, you got to, we spoke as a father and a child, and I answered all her questions. And she told me, Dad, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to follow for the pressure of group and everything. And that week, she changed completely. Even though that happened on a Sunday, that Saturday, she told me that she met this boy at school that she wanted me to meet. And I said, oh, that's great. And so he came at home and everything. It was sad because he was with us when that happened. But after a preacher that Dustin talked about the age of 14 years old, how Mary was that age when she got pregnant. So a lot of people consider that that's the perfect age for I don't know, it's a virtue or something like that. And
sure, yeah.
And I know that God decided that was the perfect moment before something worse happened. That's what kept me pushing forward, because I still got 2 more kids.
Yeah.
If I fell down, they will fall down. Mm-hmm. If I fell down, my wife is gonna fall down. Yeah. And it's a tough being a dad, but the Lord's been there since day one before this happened.
Yeah.
That's what kept me walking forward.
And the crazy part about all that is, like, man, just thinking about that story every time, like, man, and I know that I've got to hear the grave deep to every moment of that for when we talked one time, and I remember just thinking through the story and it racing through my heart and my mind, and just thinking, like, man, I couldn't imagine, like, the rush of emotion and feelings. But man, I wanted to say, and I said this a little bit earlier, but it was such a beautiful reminder to me that, like, how God has intentionally just moved you from Puerto Rico to here to experience all the things you experienced, but also, man, like, you unfortunately about working in ministry is you experience a lot of loss with people, because this is where they go when there's funerals, and we love to be there for people. And a lot of times we sit through these meetings, and usually it's a really broken family, and they have questions, and it's rightfully so. You had every right to ask why, God, be frustrated, and even be hurt. But Angel, I remember the whole time we were talking, we came and visited your house that night, or the next day. That night, actually, we came and visited your house. And I remember that I just got to spend a little time with your kids and your wife and you, and some family was rolling up and some things were going on. But man, I remember very distinctive and very vividly that every conversation afterwards I had with you, man, you were like worshiping God and like glorifying God. And we're not talking months later. We're not talking years later. We're talking like hours, days, a week later. And man, and I think that was a big thing. And if you don't mind sharing with them, is you had a very specific goal for her memorial. And do you remember what you said?
Yeah. I was gonna say, a lot of people told me that I was crazy by saying that. I had people that actually people every time said that you were doing something wrong and God just saying that to you. And no, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. One of my perfect, I call them the heroes of the Bible. I love the story of Job.
Yeah.
He lost everything.
Yeah.
And he never, ever asked God why.
Yeah.
Then why should I? That's my posture as a person. And I remember talking that day with Dustin and everything, that I said that for me, I can understand a little bit probably what God felt when Jesus was crucified. Mine didn't came back after the third day, but I remember my words that I said this is a sacrifice to bring my family back to God, a lot of people back to God. That's a sacrifice that I'm willing to take, because I know that Gypsy was pure and 100%, no boyfriends, no nothing, and she always came to my room, Dad, come to pray before I sleep, and every single time she went to my bed to give me a kiss and everything. We were very close, and a lot of people can think that maybe I don't have, I'm not sentimental. No, I got my days. I wake up sad every single day. I didn't lose a dog. I lose a daughter. But knowing that she is in heaven, I know there's a heaven. I know there's a hell. And so I know that my daughter is in heaven. That gives me comfort, and that tells me that if I'm going to see her again, I need to walk the right path. It's not up to me to ask God why. He has a purpose. But I'm seeing that purpose 7 months later. A lot of my family members have started going to church. My wife's family members have been going to church. Our family's been more united. My brothers look ourselves and our mom more than ever. So I learned that we need to value every single time, every single moment that we have, not even with the daughters and sons, is with every person around us.
Yeah, no, that's good. And in that memorial service, it was interesting as we were going through the planning, and I remember you just saying, like, you know, I want everyone in the room to know about Jesus. In fact, you even said, I want to make sure someone can translate, because I don't want Dustin's message of the gospel, right? That was we didn't, usually when we have people again have service, sometimes we have to say, hey, are you okay if we have a pastor just talk about something? And they're usually okay with it. But very few do we have someone so broken in that such a tragic moment say, if you do anything, make sure that you communicate the gospel. I'm going to provide someone who can translate, because you do have
my
a
brother,
lot of your family speaks only Spanish, and you said,
correct,
I want to make sure that they hear the words that Dustin is saying,
correct,
that the pastors are sharing. And that's, man, that was such a mind-blowing moment for me, because I'm going, man, most people, that would be kind of, even Christians, good Christians. I'm not saying that you're a bad Christian. They're bad Christians if they're upset. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying even some really good Christians who are still emotionally grieving, that's kind of like on the back of their mind, like other people, which rightfully so. There's a time for grieving. God's word tells us that, you know, grieve with those who grieve, and mourn with those who mourn. But we had a very unique opportunity, and you shared that. I thought that was pretty awesome. Another thing following that is, man, there are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of families who unfortunately have experienced what you've experienced. Some with the love of Jesus, some without. What kind of advice, what kind of wisdom would you give? And you've kind of littered it all the way through, but if there was something you could give to someone or a family who's lost a sibling or lost a daughter or son or even a grandfather or just struggling with grief, what piece of advice would you give for them?
Well, the first thing is that you cannot take yourself to die, and because that's not going to bring your loved one back. That's one of the things that you need to put in your mind. But something that kicked me to go was this church. You need to find a place where you feel comfortable, where the Word of God is taught with no boundaries, where you compare, where you can talk what the Bible says and compare with our daily lives. If you remember, we had the pastor from our previous church. They flew over here, and that meant a lot to us because we were covered by our two churches. Yep. Because either way, we moved from that other church. It wasn't a bad church. We just moved. That's been our church from always. But seeing this church work the way they did to cover us as a family. And I remember that the deacons paying attention if we needed something. That shows you that there's a God, and that shows you that there's God through people. Yeah. So you need to find a good church.
Yeah.
You need to find a good church, because talking of your problems to professionals, they study for that to help you get up, but the answer's in the Bible.
Yeah.
Every single question answered is in the Bible.
Yeah. And that's good, because like you said, we don't want to discount professional help is awesome.
Correct.
It's if you need to see a counselor, you need to see something. Those are all important things. Grieving is important, but we do believe 100% that Jesus is the answer, and he provides the peace that surpasses all understanding. He provides all the things we need. And aside from that, we're really pulling from a unquenchable well. It's a well that we can't quench that thirst of brokenness inside of our heart without him.
Correct.
And that's kind of a perfect picture of kind of us reminding that it's not just Jesus. It's not just that Jesus magically heals all your wounds, because you didn't magically get amnesia and forget, or you didn't become perfectly and whole in a day. But you also knew that in your deepest, darkest moment, you weren't alone.
No.
And you had to be strong and lead a family, lead some kids, lead other people's kids that were hurt by this. And you kind of did that very beautifully. So just kind of closing remarks here. Is there anything else that you feel called or compelled to share with them along the lines of, what outside of that kind of advice-wise? I know we just kind of talked about some advice that you feel you want to leave with them as we close this up here.
Obviously, like I said, you gotta find professional help. I did it with my kids. I did it with my wife, and it helped a lot, because they give you clues how to work things out. Everybody mourns different.
Yeah.
Some people cry, some people don't.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to talk to nobody. Some people do, and you always need to talk to someone. You cannot stock everything inside. I feel comfortable talking about this stuff since day one.
Yeah.
It hurt. Like I say, I didn't lose a dog. It was my daughter, and I will miss her every single day of my life. But I'm seeing God's purpose through our walk. Over there in Puerto Rico, we've been living there forever, and over here in the United States, we could find and buy our first house.
Yeah.
We had a lot of we grew as a family. If we were there, I remember that, and I told my wife, I think that if this happened there, I don't know how I would take it, because I was so immersed in trying to serve, and I was unfull. My cup was empty.
Yeah.
And we've been here 4 years. Yeah, with this 3 years that we've been coming to the church, I've just been filling it up without knowing that this was going to happen to me. And I think that's the clue. Yeah. You need to congregate. You need to let the word of God work through you. And the best thing that I can tell you, don't ask God why. Just thank God for. I thank God every single time, because I remember being in that room when she came to birth, and I was the first one to hold her. I was the first one to see her get her first breath, and I was the last one to see her draw her last breath.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that.
And that's such a powerful reminder that it's not just that church fixes everything, but we're called to live life in community. And you've been able to just bless us as much as we hope that we're blessing you as we continue to go through this adventure together. Hey, thank you again, Angel Diaz, for joining us. Hey, we're really excited to celebrate all the great things that God is doing in the Heartland. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Grace Off the Stage.